Are growing for President Cyril Ramaphosa to lift the COVID-19 curfew before New Year's Eve. And the country is currently on lockdown alert level 1, with the curfew in place from midnight to 4 in the morning. Now let's bring in Randolf Jorberg, who started this petition to end the curfew. And he's an entrepreneur as well as head dreamer at Beerhouse in Cape Town. Randolf, thank you for your time and good morning to you. Take me back to why you started this petition. Why was it particularly important to you and I suppose those around you, and even the calls that you might have heard to start this petition?
Well, I launched the petition because personally, as well as for my business, the limiting of freedom, not to be locked into my home for 4 hours of every single day, is strongly against my human rights, against everybody's human rights. Freedom of movement, all of that, and feels more like a police state than a state trying to protect its citizens against the danger, because we all know the virus doesn't have working hours. So and then there's the business side, that obviously employment at businesses like mine is seriously reduced because we now are not able to trade during what used to be our strong hours late at night.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely both of that. And as we raised the call and launched the petition, we also got a lot of, churchgoers joining us, saying, that obviously they also feel limited in their right to now go to church late at night on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
So it's all of us and a diverse set of voices, calling for the curfew to end.
So do you think the restriction is sending more of a negative message, not just locally, but also internationally?
Oh, absolutely. I speak to lots of tourists that cannot imagine returning to South Africa as long as there's a curfew, as long as they are locked into their hotel rooms for 4 hours of every night. And that doesn't mean that these people would necessarily be out drinking, all night. No, it's about the, feeling limited in your choices, feeling rushed out of a restaurant at 11 p.m., feeling, locked up, like imprisoned when you visit and want to explore a new country that you are visiting. So it's not only, the employment lacking from the late night trading venues, it's also tourists that never bother to come to South Africa and visit us because they know they can't be free, because nearly no other country has such a restriction and such a curfew anymore.
Right. Randolf, I'm curious to know, what do you make of, government, as well as the eNCC oftentimes telling us about, the conclusions being evidence-based in terms of preventing COVID from spreading, and, the lockdown and the restriction being one of those, sort of science evidence-based. They didn't just come to a conclusion of this, but they had to apply a scientific motivation for why there is lockdown. Do you believe there's reason to support this evidence?
No, I don't think there's any evidence to support that. As I said, the virus doesn't have working hours. Yes, the perception might be that at late night there's only like reckless drinking happening in shebeens around the country, but the reality is a much more complex one. That is, we had the beginning of a late night economy, particularly in Cape Town, where we are based in. And this late night economy, a 24/7 economy that was, in its infancy, and that was started, and we saw such, hopeful signs. We had like a vibey road closure on New Year's Eve for the last, before lockdown, for the last 5 years, or no, even 7 years, All of these things created attraction that lured more customers, more tourists to come visit South Africa. And if we now don't have that for New Year's Eve, if we don't allow that to thrive and develop, we are lacking attraction that other tourist destinations have around the world, and that is the destinations we are competing with.
Yeah. And what would you say has been the impact of this particular, lockdown? I mean, we're on alert level 1, obviously curfew starting from midnight until 4 a.m. Someone who's not in your industry may think, come on, Randolph, it's only 4 hours. Surely from 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. One can resume business, but not understanding that these are peak times and peak hours for your particular business. But with that being said, then what's been the impact like just in your industry?
Well, the impact was that starting at 10:30 p.m. every single night, we had police coming into our business, harassing our patrons to finish their drinks quick. And we had to intervene to at least allow them to, take their time till 11 p.m. as the law says. But this police harassment really smells more like a police state than anything else. So starting with that, all restaurants have to make sure that all patrons are out by 11 p.m. So it's not a 12 or midnight curfew, it's an 11 p.m. curfew for all businesses in the hospitality trade. So that means that many late night trading venues don't ever see a patron, because honestly, I mean, if you had dinner with your friends and maybe that ended like at 10 p.m., would you bother to go to another venue at that time? No, obviously you stay at the last restaurant and you would never frequent a late night venue anymore. And that means the whole attraction, the DJs or whatever else, you pay for with your drinks is now not seeing employment anymore. And with all the known ripple effects, for the economy.
Yeah, and that gives us a better understanding of exactly what we talk about when we talk of the impact. But Randolph, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. Right, your Newsleak, Randolph Jorberg, entrepreneur and head dreamer at Beerhouse.